And good morning, Stockholm. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see so many of you in person. And the first thing I want to do is invite people to kind of come to the front, because I need a little bit of participation. And it's not scary, it just involves raising your hand. So come to the front if you want to be part of this. And my first question to you is whether you have heard of the name Jon Snow. Raise your hand if you've heard of the name Jon Snow. Now keep your hand up if you've heard of a Jon Snow that was not in Game of Thrones. Okay, that's great, because I can share something a bit new with you. I'm talking about this Jon Snow. He was a physician in London, and he lived through an early stage of a cholera outbreak, and he learned a lot about that disease the first time round. So in summer 1854, there was another outbreak in London, people suffering from cholera, dying, etc. And what he did was he went out and he collected data, and he spoke to people, and he figured out what the problem was. He located a single pump in Broad Street in Soho, London, as the cause of this cholera outbreak, because the water was contaminated, and that is where the disease started spreading. So he did what you would do back in the days. He petitioned for change, and what happened was that they disabled the pump. They took the handle off, so no one could pump any more water, and that made a significant change in containing the disease. So that's a very early example of data collaboration. He went out, he collected data, he mapped it, he figured out what the problem was by talking to people and understanding their behaviors. But data collaboration, of course, is happening more and more. And I really love that because it's something I'm truly passionate about. One more modern example is the project Makeover Monday. I would love to see if any of you have heard of Makeover Monday. Yes, there are a couple of hands, that's great. So Makeover Monday is a project that I was involved in for 4.5 years, co-hosting, co-leading, and the mission was to help people visualize and analyze data, and to do that better, one data set at a time. It was a project where every week we would publish a data set and a visualization, and we asked people to create makeovers, to improve the story and the way it was told. And in the beginning, it was a few dozen people, and after 5 or 6 years of this project running, there were thousands of people creating even more visualizations every week. And there are other projects like it. There is Viz for Social Good, a project where people come together to help non-profit organizations tell their data stories and analyze their data. And if you've worked with non-profits in any capacity, you probably know most of them don't have the resources to hire a big and advanced analytics or data science team. So having people from the broader community come together and help apply their skills makes a huge difference for them. Another example is Sports Viz Sunday, which is all about visualizing sports data. And something more local is a hackathon that just finished last month. And at Snowflake, we were involved early on when the pandemic started, as you remember, just 2 years ago, in providing a platform where people could find and use COVID data for their own analyses to understand what's going on. Researchers, businesses, governments, etc. So what are the opportunities of data collaboration? I personally think they're huge, and I think they're important, and we've heard speakers talk about that earlier today as well. There are things that you can get rid of as soon as you start collaborating around data. And I'm a big fan of removing things that aren't necessary, because that way you can focus on what truly matters. The first one is to stop wasting time. Because if you can collaborate effectively around data in one single place, you don't need to go back and forth, sending files and trying to access data that you maybe can't, and then only to realize this was not what I was looking for. I need something else. It's also the chance to remove data silos for good, and they are what truly hinders data collaboration today. And this one I love especially, is to remove repetitive work and duplication. So as people collaborate around data, they will realize, well, my friend and my colleague over here, they're already solving this question. Maybe instead of me reinventing the wheel, I will actually work with them to come up with an even better solution and something we can apply in the business. And data collaboration is a chance to gain things, to, of course, welcome positive change into your organization. And the first one is innovation. When we apply more of our collective brain power and our ideas and inspirations to the same data problem, we will inevitably come up with innovative solutions and with new things that haven't been there before. If we bring 10 people into a room or onto a Zoom call and give them one question to solve, they will come up with more ideas than every individual person would in isolation. We're also going to solve it faster because we can bring together people with the right complementary skills instead of expecting one person to do all of it, but to do all of it at a pretty mediocre level. And there is also a chance, I need to get closer, to create richer analyses, to bring in third-party data so that you can use that third-party data to create new insights, to enrich what you already have, and to address those challenges. And I want to take a quick tour back to those non-profit organizations. Almost all of them that I've worked with, they need to use third-party information for their analysis, whether it's World Health Organization data or any kind of demographic information that they don't own themselves. And they need to combine that with the data they already have. So it's a matter of going to the various websites, downloading this data, and applying various calculations and transformations every single time. And heaven forbid somebody changes the structure and the content of the source file. You start all over again. And that's a waste of time. So we want to make sure that doing this analysis and including third-party data is much more effective and efficient. So how can we achieve better outcomes with data? I want to now focus a little bit on what's important to actually make this work at a technical and at a people level. What you need is one place where all of your data can live. And at Snowflake, we've created the data cloud. That is where you bring all your data and where everyone who needs to consume that data accesses it, all in one place. A single copy of the data. No need to move it around, no need for any of those steps that usually cost a lot of time. Oh, let me go back. You also need to have the right people, of course. And all of you are data people, and I'm sure that all of you at some point in your day tend to access data, whether it's spreadsheets, other information, photos, emails, etc. So we want to make sure that the data people can actually collaborate. And we need to be open to letting them work together and to not expect them to stay isolated and just focus on their own little problems. You also want to be able to scale, because as the last 2 years, but also the decades before have shown us, great data grows so quickly, and it will not stop growing, it's just going to accelerate. So we want to make sure that we're able to scale effectively as and when we need it. What people can then do as a consequence, once they have an environment where collaboration is the norm and is very possible, is they can use that single copy of data, they can work with live data. As soon as new, fresh data is available, that is what they will access. They do not need to say, oh, can you refresh the data? Can you send me the latest version? It's in one place where they access it and where the people providing the data make that available. What's also important is that single platform gives you the chance to govern the access securely, but to also revoke it at any point and for any reason, or to adjust it if somebody changes roles so that they can then have access to the data they need now, or to bring someone in the team who also needs access. So what can that look like for your organization when we now have data collaboration in place, we have a platform, we have the people that work in a collaborative way on this platform? And I want to start with an example from healthcare. So research into rare diseases is really difficult because the nature of rare diseases means they are rare. So in any one country, you might only have a handful of cases. And it's really hard to diagnose people to research people because you can't do the research until you've diagnosed them. But to diagnose them, you need all that knowledge, which is hard when you only have a handful of data points. So with rare diseases, one example is spinal muscular atrophy. And with this disease, what researchers started doing is to break down the country barriers and to really share data so that they could get their collective ideas and brain power onto this problem. And the result was the development of a drug, Zolgensma, which is extremely effective and can almost cure the disease when it's given to a child before the age of 2. At this point, it's very expensive, but it also is a one-time treatment. And there will be more and more of those examples in the healthcare industry, for example, if we can remove those barriers to collaboration. Because if you can bring that handful of cases from one country and combine it with 20, 30, 50, or 100 other countries, you suddenly have data sets that really give you a lot of insight. Or let's say you work in retail and you want to improve the customer experience. Well, knowing more about your customer by collaborating with the customer, but also with vendors, with suppliers, and with others in your big business ecosystem means you can fine-tune what you offer and how you look after your customer experience. And then, as another example, public transport. If we can collaborate across the transport network between private and public providers to ensure that people know what's available, they can access it easily, and we understand people's behaviors and their patterns of using transport, then we can better optimize what's available and how we actually promote that to citizens. And maybe we can encourage them to use public transport even more and avoid using their cars if we want to have any chance of having this planet for a little bit longer. And then, what can you achieve internally? Very important. We all want to show a return on investment on the technology that we've invested in. So by using or doing collaboration, you will use much more of your technology stack. You will use it more intensely. You will connect the different tools to the platform where all your data lives. And you can strengthen the relationships with your vendors. And that point is where I want to invite you to talk more to your vendors and to ask them for stuff. We're always happy to listen and to make possible whatever we can. And if there's one recommendation I can share from having worked for a vendor, having been a customer, having been a partner, it's to ask your vendors for the things you want and the things you want to achieve. It's also about the impact. It's about being able to answer your most complex question, because that becomes much more possible and much more likely when people come together around data. And then you can expand into new use cases, but also improve your employer brand. And I think that's an underestimated factor in recruiting and keeping great talent. When people know the tools you use, the things you do, and what a typical day in a role looks like, that is what attracts them to a company. I think people don't care so much anymore about ping pong tables and free beer on a Thursday afternoon. If they can understand what contributions they can make and what a day in their life will look like within your organizations, then you've won a large part of the battle. And then your people. their life at work will change when they can focus on doing their best work rather than trying to patch together what else is there to do, and they can focus on adding the value that only they can add. So where do we go from here? What do we want to take away, and what do we want to do over the next 2 days? I think that the power of data collaboration can really lead to a transformational change in your organization, and I've seen it time and again. There's one large organization in the sector of commercial real estate, and they started hiring data analysts and data visualization experts very publicly, very visibly from the community. And I saw them pick up more and more talent, because talent attracts talent. People want to work where their friends and their peers and some of their idols already work. So they are building this massive team of really strong people across the globe. I think that data collaboration also is a competitive advantage, and that data sharing, because most people and most organizations are still doing it the old way. Doing it differently, doing it more effectively and efficiently is going to be your first move towards leaving the competition behind, because you can take that gap and make it yours. And finally, you can do all that because the technology is ready. It's already there, it's ready to be used. And I want to invite you to please visit us at the Snowflake booth, it's right behind there, and to talk to us about what you're doing with data, what problems you're trying to solve, what challenges you have. We love a little bit of a venting session because we've all been there and we've been through it. And we've learned with our customers how to solve those challenges. And we've also got great people who come up with really innovative solutions all the time. So we'd love to meet you. I'd love to meet you. Please do come to our booth and talk to us about any of those things or any other points you want to talk about in the course of this event. And with that, I want to thank you, and I hope you all have a great 2 days here. Thanks.